inside Topkapi Palace. Silence pressed heavier than any sound. Her name was whispered carefully, Turhan Sultan, or, depending on who told the story, the woman she defeated. The lines blurred now, because by this point in Ottoman history, the daughters of the dynasty were no longer just political tools. Grandmothers and daughters. The harem was no longer a private world. It was the nerve center of the empire. These women had watched generations of men fail. They learned ruthlessness not from books, but from survival, and they understood something the empire refused to admit. If men could not protect the throne, women would. Turhan Sultan began as a captive. A girl taken far from home, reshaped by palace rules. But she was not alone. Loyalists chose sides not between men but between women, between mothers, between visions of power. The conflict was silent. No armies marched, no banners were raised. Instead, doors closed softly. Servants vanished, orders were misunderstood on purpose, poison replaced steel. This was not a war fought in daylight, this was a war fought in whispers. At night, Turhan prayed, not for mercy but for resolve. She knew what the palace demanded. She knew what hesitation cost, and she knew that if she did not act first, she and her son would not survive. So she chose betrayal. One night, one decision, one body. Carried away before dawn, when the sun rose, the balance of power had shifted. Turhan Sultan ruled as regent, a woman governing the Ottoman Empire openly, decisively. She ordered reforms, she backed strong viziers, she rebuilt authority that men had squandered. And for a time, the empire stabilized, but power leaves scars. Every princess who survived this era learned the same lesson: to rule, you must abandon innocence. Love was no longer a weakness. It was a liability. They were called manipulative, dangerous, unnatural, but the truth was more unsettling. The empire feared them because they were effective. Princesses had ruled without armies, controlled without crowns. They had mastered influence, not force, and in doing so, they exposed how fragile absolute power really was. In distant lands, their mosques still stand, their charities still feed the poor, their names are carved into stone, even if their stories were buried. Because you cannot erase impact. You can only silence the voice. And even that never lasts forever. Some princesses ended their lives in quiet exile, others died in luxury, surrounded by enemies pretending to be friends. A few vanished from records entirely, their final fate unknown. Because the daughters the Ottoman Empire feared were the ones who controlled it all along.